On the fourth day of Israel's battle with Hamas, Israel is gaining progress on its northern borders courtesy of the Iranian-backed Hezbollah movement, which is based in Lebanon. Fighting continued to rage in both the north and south of Israel today. Today, the Israeli Defense Forces, IDF, demolished militant infrastructure and continued to target Hamas strongholds. According to the IDF spokesperson, Israel has completed the elimination of Hamas sites in the country's south and is aware of every Israeli held captive in Gaza. The IDF targeted the Hamas headquarters in Gaza. Clashes between Israeli and Palestinian soldiers in Gaza deteriorated further today. As long as Israel's border with Lebanon remains dangerous, hostilities erupted as the terrorist organization Hezbollah, backed by Iran, bombed Israel and attempted to storm the border. Multiple suspects crossed into Israel from Lebanon, according to the Israeli Defense Forces. Israeli troops rushed to the scene. It was ordered that residents of several northern cities remain inside their homes. The militant group Hezbollah launched many rockets and artillery shells at 3 Israeli positions in the contested territory on Lebanon's border with the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights. In a statement, Hezbollah stated that the strike, which included a large number of rockets and artillery rounds, was in support of the Palestinian resistance. Israeli positions were allegedly directly targeted. According to preliminary assessments, Lebanon fired 12 missiles at Israel. 2 mines were detonated on Israeli territory. After failing to reach its target, one of them exploded in Lebanese territory. Meanwhile, there were indications of an aerial warning signal being emitted in northern Israel around 2 p.m. The warning was communicated to the cities of Ifta and Ramat Naftali, as well as the Mbutha Hermon Regional Council. Several militants who had slipped into northern Israel from Lebanon were murdered by Israeli Defense Forces members. The Israeli Defense Forces have been placed on high alert following a reported security incident in the settlement of Shtala on Israel's western border with Lebanon. When the Israeli army discovered a weakness in the border wall, they suspected infiltration from Lebanon. The Israeli army was correct in detecting these devices and destroying them before they could launch terrorist assaults. In the aftermath of the Hezbollah attacks, an Israeli missile destroyed a Hezbollah watchtower visible along the Lebanese border in a social media video. The Israeli army admitted to using F-16 fighter planes and combat helicopters to attack various targets in Lebanon. Hezbollah claimed to have fired rockets against 3 Israeli settlements, but the Israeli military claimed to have hit one of their bases in Lebanon. According to the United Nations Interim Force Peacekeeping Force in Lebanon, which reported explosions near Al-Bustan on the country's southwest border with Israel, the Lebanese army issued a warning to the public to avoid areas near the southern border due to Israeli air and artillery attacks. Hamas and other Palestinian organizations organized protests along the area's border with Israel, demanding that the embargo be lifted. The powerful military organization Hezbollah, which is supported by Iran, has declared its support for the Palestinian people. He claimed to have fired artillery shells and directed rockets at 3 Sheba farm outposts. During the 1967 Six-Day War, Israel captured the Shabab areas that Lebanon had claimed. According to an Israeli army statement, it fired artillery shells into Lebanese territory in response to cross-border mortar fire. According to the Israeli military, one of its drones struck a Hezbollah station in Sheba Farm's heart of area. Israel stated that gunfire was directed at Israeli territory just a few minutes ago from a site in Lebanon that its soldiers had pounded with artillery fire. The Israeli military said that it will continue to ensure the safety of the people of the State of Israel and that it is prepared for any eventuality. Tel Aviv has owned the Sheba Farms, an area of 39 square kilometers, 15 square miles, since 1967. Both Syria and Lebanon claim ownership of Sheba fields. The nature of the targets hit was not specified in the Israeli military statement. According to Lebanon's foreign minister, Abdullah Abu Habib, if Israel did not invade Lebanon, Hezbollah, a Shiite terrorist organization, would not initiate a fight with Israel on its own. The proclamation came the day after Hezbollah launched missiles at Israel in support of Hamas. According to Foreign Minister Abdullah Abu Habib, the Lebanese government has held talks with Hezbollah to discover their position on the conflict between Israel and Gaza. According to Lebanon's foreign minister, Hezbollah would not get involved in the fight unless Israel threatened Lebanon. The Lebanese foreign minister believed that by making this declaration, they had convinced Hezbollah that they would not participate in the battle. Hezbollah, on the other hand, assaulted Israel's northern areas because it refused to keep its promise. As a result of the security difficulties in northern Israel, the Israeli Defense Forces have reinforced their authority over the area. The Israeli army has already moved tank battalions to the border with Lebanon. The Israeli measures near the Lebanese border indicate that Israel believes Lebanese Hezbollah, another militant outfit with ties to Iran, is prepared to open a second front in the north as long as provocative strikes from Lebanon continue while Israel fights Hamas militants in Gaza. Close observers of the battle are wondering whether Hezbollah meant to launch a big attack on Israel, and if so, whether it would not have made more sense to carry out the plan concurrently with the Hamas militant offensive. To address this further, there could be a multitude of reasons why Hezbollah and Hamas forces did not attack at the same time. Due to the threat posed by Hezbollah in the country's north, Israel was forced to shift a substantial portion of its armed forces from the fight against Hamas to the Lebanese border. However, Hezbollah and its Iranian backers may have calculated that entering the war later would be far more advantageous because an Israeli ground assault in Gaza would unavoidably result in civilian casualties and provoke a regional public outcry. These arguments may highlight the Hezbollah terrorists' calm demeanor in Lebanon. Israel must continue with caution in the final stages of the operation. Given that Hamas rebels have certain Iranian-made weapons, the Israeli army must be prepared for even the most difficult missions. Because of Hamas militants, Iranian-supplied anti-tank weapons, and a fleet of drones capable of hitting Israeli tanks, Israel's ground operations may prove more difficult than envisaged. Israeli forces eliminating all militants and destroying Gaza's arsenal would eliminate a serious threat to Israel's future. However, the actions of Israeli forces will be costly. If the Israeli military does not comply, they may face more significant consequences. Unlike in the past, Israel will not allow Hamas to continue dominating Gaza. To defeat Hamas, Israel's defense forces will need to launch a ground war in Gaza. Before beginning this operation, it must first neutralize Hamas militants infiltrating Israel in order to retake control of the southern half of the country. The Israeli Defense Forces are hunting for Gaza refugees at the same time, according to military spokesman Jonathan Conriques. We may say that the Israeli army is on the lookout. To prevent further attacks on Israel by Hamas militants, the Israeli Defense Forces have conducted non-stop airstrikes on the Gaza Strip, destroying military objectives. Apart from the aerial bombardment, Israeli forces have completely surrounded Gaza. Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant said that Israel would shut off the Palestinian enclave's access to gasoline, food, water, and electricity. To end the Israeli siege, Hamas fighters may resort to more deadly tactics. The Israeli Defense Forces must remain vigilant. When will the Israeli Defense Forces launch their ground offensive? Could Lebanon launch a surprise strike on Israel? What will happen in the Middle East if Hamas forces are forced out of Gaza? Keep an eye on this space for answers to these and other questions. I appreciate your observation.